First things first, I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. And what an incredible weekend of sports and otherwise. You guys have fun this weekend?
It was great.
You went to see your son.
Went to Toronto, quick trip. Watched Saskatchewan beat up on Toronto.
Because your son plays for the team.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
he'd want to go anyway. He'd want to go anyway.
They're my brother Butch and everything.
Nice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
My basketball consultant.
I stayed home and watched sports.
And then I had Sunday with Nick Wright.
Cece came over. Jenna stood us up again. She's going to ignore that part of it. So
it's a nice little thing happening here. I'm going to join you at some point.
Yeah,
but
sure,
boy, we have a lot to get to this morning, starting with Aaron. How good is Aaron Rodgers at this point?
Yeah.
So let's start in Jerry Jones' world. Thrilling matchup between the Cowboys and said Packers in a fourth quarter that had 5 lead changes. Dak Prescott scored with 1:13 left to go. Game winner, right? Only if Aaron Rodgers isn't on the other sideline. 1:13 was too much time. Rodgers marched right down the field, threw a touchdown to Davante Adams for the win. Here's Aaron Rodgers after the game.
Our identity is that when we have to have it, there's zero excuses. That's just the case. So we needed to have a drive there to either tie the game into overtime or beat them and put it together.
We knew the importance, how important it was for us to get this win and try to go into this bye week 3-2. And now on the flip side, it's just about staying focused. It's a lot of football left to play.
All right, there are a lot of layers in this one, but let's start talking about Aaron Rodgers. CC, is Aaron Rodgers carrying the Green Bay Packers by himself at this point?
Not only is he carrying the Packers organization,
Green Bay as a whole,
Cheesehead
Wisconsin,
Nation, but it's beyond this. I played in an era where I think the greatest throwers that's ever thrown the football, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, Joe Montana, Warren Moon, John Elway. I mean, there's a collection. Jim Kelly is a collection of guys. I mean, all of them being Hall of Famers. Threw the football great. I've never seen anyone throw the football like Aaron Rodgers.
Why?
The flight of the football. He can throw the ball further in the air with the ball not getting off the ground. Even the touchdown throw, that ball probably did not get higher than 7.5 feet off the ground.
What does that mean? Isn't that arm strength?
No, it's arm strength, but it's also he can throw it with such a tight spiral that the defenders, they don't have enough time to react.
This was perfect coverage.
I mean, the spiral is also so tight that the ball is easier to catch because the front of it is spinning so tight. And his release is so quick. The knack for it, being able to throw it wherever the defenders aren't. We talk about all the time, he throws the people open. I mean, Davante Adams is not open here. But also the confidence and the arrogance. I just threw that. The receiver comes back to him like we always do. Man, go right back to it. Aaron Rodgers gave him the look. Didn't tell him he was, but he gave him the look. Aaron Rodgers is a special football player. And we've seen a lot of guys who can throw the football, but to be able to put it together with a winning formula, I mean, all over the field, to all of his receivers, people don't realize. Jordy Nelson was on the sideline, his best receiver, and Davante Adams had been knocked out in the Chicago game. So not only Aaron Rodgers, but what Davante Adams did, you know, to come back after being concussed. He went to Dallas being questionable if he was going to play. And besides Aaron Rodgers being the most valuable Packer, amazing football. It's amazing to see. I will never get tired of watching Aaron Rodgers throw the football because it's an amazing thing to see. And we are witnessing something that's really, really special.
We're now in a similar place to me in our 2 most popular sports when we talk about, like, the best to ever do it. And how, listen, Tom Brady, the reason I say it's, let me back up a little bit. The reason I say it's similar in 2 sports is, forget if you disagree with me about LeBron being the greatest basketball player ever. Just take it for a moment. Jordan is obviously the most accomplished basketball player ever. Some people, myself included, make the case LeBron is better at basketball than Jordan was. But those are 2 separate things. Tom Brady is obviously the most accomplished quarterback ever. Yeah. Second on the list, probably Joe Montana. Third on that, Aaron Rodgers is not near the top of the most accomplished quarterback ever.
Yes.
It's a long list of guys you get to before you get to Aaron Rodgers. But if you are asking who is better at playing the position, whose best is better than everyone else's best, who is, as you would put it, the best thrower of the football, the guy who somehow can make all the huge plays while taking care of the football. His touchdown-interception ratio seems make-believe.
Yeah, off the charts.
Not only is he best in league history, he's best by a mile. He throws more than 4 touchdowns for every 1 interception. No one else, there's only, I think, 4 other guys that are better than 2.5 to 1. He's over 4 to 1. His career quarterback rating is the best in league history by a mile. And he has just consistently done it. CC, you mentioned 2 guys, Jordy Nelson and Davante Adams. Jordy, I think, would be a good player on any team.
Yes, he's a good player.
Davante is obviously an above-average NFL player. But he has taken a guy in Jordy that would be a good player most places. And Davante, who would be, I think, a 3rd receiver most places, maybe a 2nd receiver. Mm-hmm. And since the start of 2016, who leads the NFL in touchdown catches? Jordy with 20. Who's 2nd? Davante Adams with 16. More than Mike Evans, more than Odell, more than Dez, more than Julio. Those 2 guys, just like he made a season where James Jones, literally wearing a hoodie. We talk about Hoodie Mello. He was Hoodie James Jones all season. He was on the waiver wire. He goes to Green Bay, leads them in touchdowns. It's what Aaron Rodgers can do for the entire team around him, I've never seen from a singular football player.
He not only makes average wide receivers better, he makes his average offense better. And here's the thing that I saw about Aaron Rodgers that I love the most. There was a shot towards the end of the game of Dak Prescott. He was sweaty. He was out of breath. He was hunched over a little bit. Mm-hmm. He was walking it off. He was like, you could tell that his heart was racing. And then you saw a shot of Aaron Rodgers, who was about to, the shot. He stands like this. Not a speck of dirt on, not a speck of, he wasn't glistening, there was no sweat.
Didn't seem to be worried.
About a thing. It could have been 1:13, it could have been 13 seconds. It's almost as if it didn't matter how much time was left on the clock. He was just standing there waiting. There's a certain calm about him that instills a sense of confidence, both from people watching and I'm sure from his own teammates.
Yes.
I would have to imagine that if you're anyone on that offense, you're going, no matter what, until the end of the game, we've got a shot because of number 12.
And it's been proven. It's been proven all the time. They got video evidence. The guys have been on the field. Like, when you're playing with a guy like him, the score is one opponent. The team is one opponent. The clock is one opponent. But none of them are bigger than that guy. So as a team, you always feel like you have confidence. People forget 5 lead changes in the 4th quarter in this game. Well, people might forget Green Bay was down by 15. But there's no need to worry. And you're right. The body language and how a quarterback looks, it sends a message to the rest of the team. And let me tell you something. If Aaron Rodgers throws an interception at the end of the game, I'm not going to say that he doesn't care, but he's got the guts to say, I'm not going to settle for a field goal kicker that's missed 2 extra points. Yeah. I mean, he's been good for the Packers.
That's such a great point, Steve.
I'm going for the touchdown.
And not only that, to explain what you were talking about before, that Davante came back into the huddle and said, give me the ball again.
Yeah, on the first throw to the end zone, they threw a fade. It was incomplete. Aaron threw the ball a little bit inside. Davante Adams came back to the huddle and told him, I got the guy beat. Now, he was going against a rookie, hoping to get man-to-man coverage again. And the DB he's in good shape.
He's in good position.
Like he's in good shape.
He did everything right.
Now, for Aaron, once the DB gets one ball thrown at him, he's not thinking they're going to come right back because it's not a Odell Beckham. It's not Julio Jones. It's not Jordy Nelson. These are the top flight guys. A quarterback would normally come back to him. They wouldn't come back to a guy like Davante. So I know the DB was fairly shocked, but there is no defense for the perfect pass. No defense. And that's what that pass was.
I'm so glad you brought up not settling for the field goal. This drive is less impressive if the Packers, or this touchdown pass, I should say, if the Packers are down 4. If you're down 4 and you know we score a touchdown or we lose.
Yes.
You have to go for it.
You have to go for it. I watch teams every weekend eschew going for the win to take overtime and take your chances. Like, I don't want to turn it over late. We're in field goal range. Crosby's missed 2 extra points, but he's a reliable kicker. He's been one of the league's most reliable kickers the last few years. All right, we'll take one shot that it's to the very back of the end zone that if our guy doesn't catch it, it goes out of bounds and we'll kick the field goal and take our chances. Nah, man. Not with that guy. And that was the coolest thing to me about watching the replays there is Rodgers, where he threw it the second time, is where it would have been a touchdown if he threw it the first time.
Yes.
Like he realized it was, when I watched that play, I said to my buddies in the room, I said, a computer couldn't have placed it better. Like if you just remove Aaron Rodgers, everyone runs the same route, the defenders run the same thing, and say, computer simulation, put this ball in the perfect place.
Between 8 and 9 feet and right above the head of the DB.
With the timing then.
That's the perfect timing.
He fitted into a window the size of a football.
There is no time to recover, too, because he throws it with such velocity. By the time the DB turned his head, he had caught it.
We need to bring Coach Mangini back because there was a lot of tension in the room, and he just came in and went,
he's a salve for our wounds.
It is all good now. All right, we're going to talk.
I'm still hot. So let's go.
He is. The thumb has been going like this all commercial break. All right, we're going to move on to some actual football now. The Giants season went from bad to worse to winless yesterday. Not only did they lose 27-22 to the Chargers, they lost Odell Beckham in the process. Odell fractured his ankle on a gruesome play. He might miss the rest of the season. Coach, I'll start with you. What was your reaction to the injury that we saw, to the Giants sitting at 0-5 now, and to the remainder of this season? Basically, tell us everything you know. Just start talking.
To me, this is a really unique opportunity for the Giants because you get to see exactly who you have on your team. You get to see exactly how guys are going to respond in an incredibly difficult situation. And I don't just mean the players. I mean the coaches. I mean the front office staff. There's obviously a lot of problems that have to be addressed. There's a long time to go in the season. And now you get a chance to see who you have. And there's the whole idea that adversity builds character. That's not true. It just reveals character. It just shows you that the people who are going to be pushing in the same direction, and then the people that are going to run for cover and run for lifeboats. So I'm really intrigued by this, and it's a totally different situation than what you have with the Jets. Nobody went into the season with any expectation for the Jets. Mm-hmm. They've overachieved. Now the expectations are going to shift out to there, and the Giants had a ton of expectations. They are where they are. That'll change, and now it's just a reveal.
I'll just say one thing. You came in here early on the show, and you laughed at Nick when Nick took the schedule and went, win, that's a loss. Obviously, that's a loss. Win.
I don't know when I did
You
that.
literally laughed at him, and you said you can't predict
every
the schedule.
time I'm on the show, he does win, loss.
I know.
Oh, yeah, that's a win.
And this is why, because in the NFL, you literally never know week to week. A team that went, 11-5 last year is now 0-5 this year. So you really don't know. But I think, to his point, Nick, you have to see what your team is made of now.
Yeah, well, listen, obviously this is a season from hell for the Giants. And obviously, my analysis, and I think I'm not the only person who thought this team was going to be good this year, was way off. Set the Odell injury aside for a moment. Prior to his injury this weekend, what you had seen the last 3 weeks, the 3 games they'd played with a somewhat healthy Odell Beckham, was the exact blueprint they used to go to 11-5 last year. Defense play good enough through 3 quarters. Odell make an enormous play in the 4th quarter to get you the lead or get you in position to take the lead, and then defense hang on to that lead. That last part is what lost them in the last 3 weeks. Each of the last 3 weeks, Odell either scored a touchdown or made a huge play, get him downfield to take the lead. You have one of the 5 best defenses in the league last year that would then hold those leads. This year, 3 weeks in a row, what has turned into a bottom 5 defense has not held those leads. You then add the injury to the insult, which is your best player is lost for the season, and that's how you sit at 0-5. I feel badly for Odell, but that no one could predict. It just happens. The thing that is most shocking to me is this defense falling apart. Like, Cece, I know you told me you can't rely on defense just because they were great last year being great this year, but to go from...
It wasn't like they were 5 years. They just put that defense together. That's a bunch of free agents, a few draft picks. It wasn't like they had played. It's not like that's Seattle. It's not like it was Ray Lewis with Baltimore. Like, they didn't have a long history. They had 1 season together. So I think that we gave that too much credence. Them not addressing their offensive line, we didn't give that enough attention. And, Nick, I got to tell you, the NFL, if you change 5 plays in a season, all right,
Everyone.
you're 6-9. They weren't that good last year, and it showed in the playoff game. People blame it on Odell on the boat trip. They weren't that good. Green Bay was a lot better team than them. But we just thought, oh, let's just blame it on the wideouts. Those guys going down there, that's the reason why they lost that game. Well, we ain't have no running game in the cold. And the offensive line, if the offensive line can't block when it's warm, what you think they're going to do when it's cold? All right? And they played awful in the playoff game. So looking at the Giants, people didn't know what they were looking at. This is not a defense that's been together. This is a defense purchased by money. All right? And this year, they're in the bottom half as far as against the run.
They're terrible.
So you cannot predict when a unit has not been together over a long period of time what they're going to do from season to season.
And I've said this before, you don't get to start where you left off. And that's a mistake that everybody makes. You think, okay, that's where they were, then of course they're going to get better. But just like we talk about with Dak Prescott or any young player, the league catches up with you. So that defense last year did a lot of good things. And offensive coordinators now go back, analyze things more deeply in the offseason, and it catches up to that defense. So the defense, all the things that they did last year, they have to do as well, if not better. And Marty Schottenheimer always used to say the games come down to about 5 plays. Okay, every single game comes down to 5 plays. But and seasons come down to 1 or 2 plays too.
Right, but the people who, when they look at their team, they like to look at it from a pleasant perspective. They were 11-5. You know, Coach, they could have been 13-3. Yeah, they could have been 8-8 too. Yeah. We know that. The fans, they don't know that. The Giants were not as dominant. They had the 2 good wins against Dallas. Dallas was the only dominant team, them and Atlanta, in the NFC last year. Green Bay, what were they? They were just Aaron Rodgers magic.
And I remember it was 1997 with Parcells. We went 12-4, went to the AFC Championship game. So everybody predicted us to win the Super Bowl the following year. We started 2-6 because things didn't go the way that we thought they would. We had to make a lot of changes. Now we finished the season 6-2 to end up 500. And to me, that's what you're looking at from the Giants. What are they going to do? This is where they are. Now, from what happens from this point on is going to tell you so much about that organization.
Can we talk about Odell for a second? What does this do for this kid who really, CC worked with him in the offseason and trying to, I mean, he thought this was the year that he was going to really make a stand. It was a contract year for him. He put the time and effort into getting his body right and trying to mature and get his mind right. And for something like this to happen, now how hard is it for, Coach, I'll ask you, how hard is it for I mean, he's still a young kid. He's still young in this league to come back.
To me, they've got the 5th-year option on.
You wouldn't give him a new contract?
No. You've got to. So he got his body right this year. Well, what was he doing all the other years? What you want to see, I think it's really important that you pay your best players and your best people, and you're looking for that combination, and you're looking for that consistency, and you're looking for that growth. So if there's questions in any of those areas, then you take that next year and you see where you are. Now, Odell could hit it out of the park if he goes and has a significant year next year, and you take a chance like that organizationally. But if you don't get what you want,
if you don't give him a new contract,
what's going to happen?
I'll tell you. If you
I
don't,
know, but I always hear
hold on. You have no idea what I'm going to say. You have no idea.
I have it.
If you don't give him a new contract, you're better off this offseason trading him.
Why?
Because if the Giants are as bad as CC is saying, and it appears he's correct, and even if you guys,
well, it don't matter how bad they are. It don't matter what I say, Nick. It's what the record says.
Okay, right, exactly. That's right. Okay, so if the Giants are as bad as they appear to be, and Eli, even if he's your quarterback the next, he's got 2 years left on his deal. Eli is nearing the end. Having the highest paid receiver in football doesn't. We've seen that on bad teams. Like that doesn't do much for you. And Odell's worth for a team that might be soon rebuilding. If you're not going to give a new contract, he's going to be a disgruntled player going into his 5th year, you can probably get a first-round pick for Odell Beckham. You can tear the whole thing down. You can't have the owner come out in the offseason, say, we're going to give this kid a new contract. Him, when he's out there, play just like Odell's always played. You said you want to give it to your best players. He has been the most productive receiver through 47 games in the history of football. You can't not give that guy a contract.
Well, look, if the owner says you're going to give him a new contract, then you're going to give him a new contract because he owns the team.
That's what he said.
So from that perspective, I completely understand what you're saying. But in terms of you have to give him a new contract or he's going to be disgruntled, that to me is problematic in itself. You want guys that you're going to have around that are consistent, that are going to keep growing, that you're investing in, and you think that investment is going to pay off, not just in what they've shown, but in continued growth, both as a player and as a person.
I'm not concerned about the Giants. The Giants are going to sign Odell to a long-term contract. They are not going to trade Odell. And you'd be crazy to trade Odell for a first-round pick. There are no wide receivers in college football like Odell Beckham. All right? No, it would take at least 2 first-round picks to be able to trade for Odell Beckham.
And typically, people play really, really well in a contract year.
He's played really well every year of his career.
So the Cam Newton fan club overflowing with new members this morning after a very distracting week. Cam Newton threw for 355 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 27-24 win over the Lions. They improved to 4-1. Cam discussed the win after the game.
It was a great team win for us, coming and playing in a hostile environment. And a much-needed win, good for our morale as a whole. And we got a short week that we got to get prepared for. And, just have to have a great week of preparation.
All right, Nick, let me ask you. This was obviously a very you're excited. I know you're happy with the way he played. This is a long week for Cam Newton.
Analysis.
Self-inflicted. He did a lot of it on his own. Were you surprised with the way he rebounded from a lot of the noise?
Right, self-inflicted, as you put it.
Yes.
I was surprised in this regard. He had a great game against New England, 300-plus yards passing. Only one other time in his career has he had back-to-back 300-yard passing games, and that was the first 2 games of his career. So the first 2 games of his career, he goes for 300-plus. From then until now, he had never done it. So, yeah, that's surprising. You don't see that coming. I was not surprised about this. I thought this was one of 2 options for Cam. I thought he was going to be awesome, or I thought he was going to be terrible. Like, that's what I think. The highs of last week with the win and then the lows with the embarrassing comments he made. I thought this was either going to be a vintage 2015 Cam Newton game, which is what we got, or a vintage 2016 Cam Newton game where he looks like not one of the 20 best quarterbacks in football. What I was most impressed with, though, CC, was the degree of difficulty on some of these throws to wide receivers that don't appear to be open. It's not like we saw them in New England, you brought it up, guys breaking wide open, coverage breakdowns. This Lions defense has been excellent. Yes. Since the start of 2016, only 12 times has an opponent scored 20 points on them.
Yes.
That's 3rd best in the league. Like, the defense had been really good. They did it with no running game. The Panthers had 28 carries for 28 yards. They had 11 penalties for 100 yards. They shot themselves in the foot. They couldn't run the football.
Cam only ran 7 times.
Right. But Cam was great. And when Cam plays like this might be the best team in the NFC.
There's 3 times, and I talk about it all the time. I've been knowing Cam since he was 17 years old. When he was recruited at University of Florida, decided to commit to them early, eventually ended up signing a scholarship with them. There's been a few times. During that workout, Cam was put under the pressure. Florida only had 1 scholarship offer. We told Cam before, told his dad before. Cam completely took over the workout. He showed out. Cam was involved in a controversy as far as did he get paid, or did someone in his family or someone around him, did he get any impermissible benefits when he was at Auburn? He was temporarily suspended, then reinstated. What did he go to do after that? He was down, I think, 21-7 at Alabama, brought the team back in Tuscaloosa, went on to win Heisman, win the national championship. After that, he decides to go to the pros. His workouts are awful. At the combine, he's awful. He can't throw. He's inconsistent. people started criticizing him. He was clearly the best player in college football, clearly should be the first pick in the draft. But there was a lot of noise about him.
People were saying Blaine Gabbert should go ahead of him.
What does Cam do with that? He gets real focused. He starts his NFL career just like he did yesterday. So there's several times where I've seen Cam really respond to adversity. And this week, he had real adversity, and he responded with the type of focus that Brady, Breeze, Aaron Rodgers, like all these guys would do. And what he went through, I believe, made him focus more and concentrate on his craft. Because Cam, in this, he said, regardless of like what I say, there's still work and preparation to be done. And to me, Cam doesn't spend the amount of time or focus in preparation the way we've seen some of the other legendary quarterbacks do it. But in this game, because of what he went through, he was able to, on the back of the New England game, he was able to put it together. And it was all based on his fundamentals. Like his fundamentals, his feet, his reads. He wasn't forcing the ball. And he was far more accurate than we're used to him. So you have to give Cam credit after a very tough week, a week where he lost sponsors, lost fans, embarrassed himself. Cam came out and played better than I ever expected because I haven't seen Cam throw the ball consistently down the field with that type of accuracy. So you have to give Cam credit for responding, not only with his message, because the message was on point, but more importantly, with his play and now how he conducts himself moving forward would be even more important.
Nick, if there's one thing I learned just from listening to you talk about Cam over the last couple of weeks is that he's most comfortable when he doesn't have to think so much, when he can go out and just be his natural athlete and do his thing. And what you're alluding to, which is exactly what happened this week, is there's been so much, you call it noise, and there's been so many questions that were not football related, that were pulling his attention in so many different places, that it almost felt like by the time he got on the field, there was no time to even prepare for this game football-wise, and it was more of a sense of, let me just go play football. Like, I didn't do the prep work. Or, my mental game isn't exactly where it's been the last couple of weeks, and it showed. He was a pocket passer yesterday, which is one thing he always gets knocked for. He stayed in there. He made the passes you were talking about. Right. He barely ran the ball at all. It looked almost, I don't want to say effortless, because a lot of those passes were really tough passes.
Yes.
But if there was a game where he looked like he was either having fun and with ease, I think it was this game yesterday.
And I think Chris's point is because of the controversy, he redoubled his efforts in the lead up to the game, which is something
internalized it.
Right, something the great quarterbacks do without controversy.
Yes,
like
they do it every week.
It's a fair knock on Cam that
Tom Brady is preparing this week as if he played, as if he had a bad press conference.
Right.
We were talking about it yesterday. Tom Brady will be preparing as if every analyst said he was awful. Every analyst, like Nick Wright, said at 40 he's washed up. That's the way they prepare. Drew Brees does the same thing. Aaron Rodgers. Cam doesn't have that, and that's what he's missing, and that's why his play over the last 3 years has been inconsistent.
I want to bring up one note. So our great guy, Dusty, brought me a sheet.
Dusty,
this right here is
guy.
the 7 best games of Cam's career from a passer rating perspective. And 2 of them are his last 2 games. The other 5, what they all have in common is they're blowouts. A 38-0 win over Atlanta, a 35-10 win against Minnesota, a 48-16 win over Tampa. So why is that important? It's important because not a lot of high-leverage throws at the end of games. So when Cam's been at his best, he hasn't had these critical moments late in games, right? Yesterday, they were up 17 late in the game. But then all of a sudden, they're up 3. Detroit has this propensity for these comebacks. They're up 3. Detroit's about to get the ball back. It's 3rd and 8. And I think we saw the most high-leverage throw of Cam's career, given all things considered, in games where he's playing great. Everything would have been lost if they don't convert this and they give up a touchdown to Detroit. Nobody cares what Cam did. It's 3rd and 8. Your number one option, look, that CC looks to me like not quite double coverage, but he's got a corner on him and then a linebacker sitting in his zone.
He puts it in the first hole. They were in zone coverage. They had trips to the field. He came back to a single receiver side. He does exactly what the book tells a quarterback to do, and he flights the ball where the guy can't get there in time.
Man, there was no question there. There was no delay.
No.
Listen, should I run here? That way, if I don't get it, Detroit, they got to use a timeout. We take it to this play ended the game.
Yes.
After this, went to the 2-minute warning, 3 kneels. That play ended the game. And that was the type of precision, elite throw Cam has shown flashes of. To do it in that spot with the game on the line was as impressive as anything he did leading up to it.
Ben Roethlisberger had a day to forget yesterday. Steelers-Jaguars coach. Big Ben looked little in this one. 5 interceptions in a 30-9 loss to Jacksonville. Steelers now 3-2, but a lot of questions about their quarterback. After the game, said quarterback did not sugarcoat his performance.
I'm not playing well enough.
You doing anything there? Why is that?
Don't think so, but maybe I am. Maybe I don't have it anymore.
Does doubt ever creep in here, you think?
Nope. It's not, if anybody in this room ever has that doubt, they probably aren't here. You know what I'm saying? Like, just professional athletes shouldn't have doubt.
All right, so no one can argue that he had a bad game yesterday. The team played terribly yesterday behind him. But it brings up a bigger question, which is, do we have unrealistic expectations of older quarterbacks from that earlier class who are now sort of over the hill of their prime? What are your thoughts, Nick?
Before I answer that just quickly, I do want to mention, for a guy in Ben Roethlisberger who really hates distractions caused by players.
He's been doing it a lot.
I mean, man, saying I might not have it anymore. I wonder if anyone's going to be asked about that. But to answer your question, listen, I went into this season thinking Big Ben was going to be awesome. I thought the Steelers were going to be awesome. The Steelers, I think, are okay. And Big Ben might get it turned around. But I think it's at least possible that Tom Brady's never-ending greatness has perverted to a degree, that's probably the wrong word, but morphed to a degree our realistic expectations of quarterbacks who are, Eli, Phillip Rivers, they're all drafted in 2004. It's year 14 for them. They're all 35 or 36 years old. And if you look at those 3 quarterbacks from that great draft class this year, those 3 compared to the league, forget their teams being 4-11, they have below average, league average, completion percentage, yards per attempt, passer rating, touchdown interception ratio. That triumvirate of 3, 1 no doubt Hall of Famer, 1 likely Hall of Famer, 1 guy that's probably going to be right beneath the Hall of Fame threshold, none of them are playing the level we've come to expect. But maybe it should have been expected because they're in year 14. I don't think that's being disrespectful to those guys' legacies. I think it's right now, they look like most 35, 36-year-old quarterbacks look, but Tom Brady just has changed our perception on this stuff.
Coach, have we done a disservice by comparing everyone to Tom Brady?
Well, look, with Tom Brady last year, he struggled a little bit early, and everybody was saying he needed to move on to Jimmy Garoppolo.
2 years ago. Last year he
came on fire.
Yeah.
Whichever, and he was too old at that point. So all it's going to take is 1 bad game by Tom Brady before everybody says he's too old, he's too old. And the thing with Big Ben, there was no distraction element to what he said. He said it in a tongue-in-cheek way. He said it in a way that
how the question was asked to him, he kind of said it tongue-in-cheek as if, oh, yeah, maybe I lost my fastball.
And obviously he didn't mean that at all, even though it was presented like he was saying it introspectively. That wasn't the case at all. And with Big Ben, in 2008, he threw 4 picks in a game, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. He's had some bad games. They haven't been this bad, but he's got the ability to recover. And sometimes with him, when it goes bad, it goes really bad. But he can go the other way really quickly as well. And I think they haven't figured out exactly what they're going to do on offense this year, exactly who they want to be. But don't count Big Ben out. And I don't think it's about his age at all.
I don't think it's age. I played 16 years in the league, retired when I was 37, 38th birthday in Miami. My 14th year, the same year they're in, I made the Pro Bowl, playing wide receiver, which is far more taxing, and our arc on our career typically ends before that. So where they are, I don't have a problem as far as their age. And Ben, the 5 interceptions, you cannot attribute one of those interceptions to age. I watched them over again and over again. And you could say this was a young quarterback. Bless you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can't say it's an old quarterback. a couple times he was trying to fit the ball. They were down. He was trying to fit the ball into a tight spot, like Brett Favre. So Brett Favre, when he was younger and threw interceptions, you're like, man, this guy's a gunslinger. When you get older and you throw interceptions, you lost your fastball.
So one of the reasons they were down, though, was because he threw back-to-back pick sixes, right?
I understand that, Nick, but young and old, you still throw interceptions. None of the interceptions you can say that's an old guy. His reaction time, he didn't read the coverage. They're just interceptions in themselves. Now, you're trying to group this class of quarterbacks all together. Now, you can do that. That's the lane you're going to stay in. I'm not going to do that because I watched the plays. I watched the 5 interceptions, and it's a quarterback trying to bring his team back, either young or old, making mistakes because he couldn't step. People flashed in his face. He couldn't step into the throws to get velocity on it. My issue with Ben has nothing to do with this season. My issue with Ben has to do with last season. When the season ended, he said, you know something? I don't know if I want to play this game anymore. And to me, that's always a problem. Football is not a game that mentally you can check in and check out. And most of the guys who say they don't want to play, at some point during that season, you see that played out in front of you. You have to be committed, mind, body, and soul. That's why I didn't think Jay Cutler, coming from the broadcast booth, you can't entice a man to play this game even with money. How do I know that? I retired. After 5 games, Miami, Rick Spielman came to me. They had 3 receivers get hurt on a Monday night. They offered me 7 figures. Oh, I got to take that money, coach. I got to. But mentally in my heart, I was not in the shape to be ready to go through what it takes to be in the NFL. And I made a mistake, all right? Because once I had checked out, I was done. I was only a shell of myself. And I worry about that when he started talking this offseason, you know, I'm going to take some time off. I don't know if I can play this game. That's what I would be more concerned about than the overall age of this class with Eli, Phillip, and Ben all grouped together.
And with Ben Roethlisberger, throughout his whole career, he's been what's called a make-something-happen guy. And as you go into a game against him, you plan for that. And then what that means is he's gonna extend plays, and he's gonna make something happen either for them or for you. Now, that can work one of 2 ways. He can create a bunch of broken plays that are big plays, and we always try to keep him in the pocket because when he does that, it's so hard to defend. And then as he's holding the ball or trying to get out of the pocket, you can have games like this where there's 8 sacks, where there's 4 picks, 3 picks. It's just by virtue of how he's wired. In terms of him discussing retiring, that was a concern for me too. But don't you think a lot of older players, even though they don't say it, they go into the offseason saying, all right, do I want to do everything that I have to do to be as good as I've always been, or is it time for me to shut it down?
Let me tell you the big difference between one quarterback who is the GOAT, Tom Brady. Tom Brady, what'd he say? His wife said, oh, he shouldn't be playing. I'm going to play 5 more years. Now, that's a different attitude, all right? Tom Brady's total attitude, Ben Roethlisberger and Carson Palmer. Look at Carson Palmer. Read the press clippings of what he said after all. I'm going to take some time off, don't know if I'm going to play. Well, let me tell you something. He hadn't come back to playing yet in 2007 season.
But then you get Brett Favre, who every year was saying, you know, I think I'm going to retire. And then he would retire, and then he'd come out of retirement, and he'd still play pretty well.
But the thing that people don't know about Brett Favre, Brett is about that drama. Brett is about himself. Brett was a rare guy. Brett loved to create that hype.
I know all about Brett.
But okay, but also Brett had Aaron Rodgers behind him. So Brett wasn't necessarily threatened to quit because he knew they would move on. But that was just Brett's thing. Brett liked the attention, and he liked keeping Ed Warder on the road there in Green Bay, chasing him down.
Welcome back to First Things First Sunday Night Football action. Chiefs improved to 5-0 with a 42-34 win over the Texans. Game was not as close as the score suggests. Alex Smith delivered with 3 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt had yet another 100-yard game. But the big news out of this one is J.J. Watt, who had to leave with a tibial plateau fracture in his left leg. He will have an MRI later today. We'll get to Watt, but we start with this. Can anybody slow down the Kansas City Chiefs? What do you think?
I mean, I haven't seen a team that can do it. They just now, like last night, they had another new wrinkle. DeAnthony Thomas. Do people remember him? I think he went to Oregon. He was this, like, scat back wide receiver returner on
He's a specialty player.
Right.
Utilized on reverses, trick plays, undersized guy. Yes. Andy Reid, though, he has the offensive mind because they have like 3 receivers under 5'8".
Yeah. That's the thing is, like, on 90% of teams, D'Anthony Thompson would be your fastest guy, your trick play guy. Instead on the Chiefs, like, he's your 3rd fastest guy, and just they got him a touchdown yesterday. I'm looking at this stat sheet from yesterday. This long part there, that's the 10 different guys that caught a pass yesterday. Andy Reid, they mentioned her in the broadcast that Andy Reid, one of the reasons he wanted to stop having, like, his hand in the personnel side of things was he just wanted to draw plays, just coach football. And the different variety in what the Chiefs throw at you, and the just diversity of the different ways they can hurt you. And then, oh yeah, by the way, Tyreek Hill's returning punts, and he's faster than, he might be the fastest player in league history from a track perspective. Like, it's just, there's so many different.
Did you ever see Deion Sanders play?
Man, I said from a track perspective, not a football perspective. Tyreek Hill's got one of the, like, 10 fastest 200-yard times in the history of the world. I'm not knocking your man.
Aren't you old enough to have seen Deion
I'm old
play?
enough to see Deion and Bo. One of. I don't want to offend your sensibilities. One of the fastest players in the history of the league.
And functional speed. There are a lot of track athletes that have tried to play football, but they couldn't transfer the speed. Now, Tyreek Hill, he transfers it over. Yes.
When Alex Smith is playing at this level, like, no player has ever started a season, no player ever with this, through this many games, this many touchdowns with no interceptions. 11 touchdowns, 0 picks for Alex Smith. He's playing at an MVP level. Kareem Hunt's playing at an MVP level.
Andy Reid's coaching at an MVP level.
They're getting these early leads, and then they can unleash the pass rush. Like, this is a tough team right now.
Kansas City has been known for their defense. All right, their defense has carried them. They got some great bodies. We know they lost one of their premier defenders in Eric Berry earlier in the season. But what they've added, they've slowly put their offensive line together methodically. They've used the draft. They've also used free agency. They've also believed in Alex Smith enough that Andy Reid has finally opened up his whole playbook. Like, I've been a big fan of Andy Reid. Andy Reid is one of the great play callers that we've ever seen. But Andy Reid also is smart enough to know his limitations, realizing that being the cook, being the maitre d', all those things, I can't do all those things.
And owning the restaurant.
Right. No, Andy's like, listen, you know what I like to do, Nick? I like to eat. All right? Let me eat these plays. Let me draw up some plays with this talent.
But it's not easy for a lot of coaches to acknowledge that and then go ahead and do it. Yes, eating, we're all on the same page. Andy is too.
No, but he's so aware, like, where he is right now in his career. And he had to swallow his pride a little bit, and most coaches won't do that. They can't come back from being the general manager just to being the head coach. So that's a credit to Andy Reid. But his plays offensively, now he has the ability to run the ball and throw. Alex Smith, what has he always been good at? Play action. His ball skills have always been very good. So you marry that with Hunt, a running game, and Andy Reid's play calling ability, and the one player you didn't mention who's special, man, Kelsey is special.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a great tight end. I mean, receiving, running after the catch. They play him in so many different positions, it's almost hard to take him out of the game and double team him.
This is a team that doesn't have any glaring superstars, right? Nobody that wants the camera, nobody that wants the attention. Andy Reid on down, this is a team that shows up equal on all sides of the ball, seemingly. They go out there, they play football. He draws up a play, they run it. It seems like it is so easy and effortless that the team just goes out.
They are not a team that is in a need of the national spotlight.
They like it that way. They want it. That is Andy. That's always been Andy.
They are not a team that needs to be in the power ranking ranked #1. But let me tell you what they are. This is a team that needs home field advantage. Because you're talking about one of the great things in sports. Man, that Kansas City home field advantage is real, and I believe they're going to have it. There's no team more likely to get to the Super Bowl especially with Alex Smith playing the way he's playing, Andy Reid coaching the way he's playing, than Kansas City. I'm very impressed with Kansas City, not just because they're undefeated, but how they're doing it. If they were winning games 14-10, I'd be like, the margin error is really, no, they got a huge margin error now because they can put 30 on you, they can put 35 on you, they can put 40 on you now, and that's not something that Kansas City could do before with Alex as their quarterback.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.